What is up, everybody? I'm No Lex, given the #1 free-to-play player in Marvel Snap, here with your afternoon snap. And today, I'm going to break down all of the Spotlight caches for January 2024. I'm going to be ranking, as you can see, I've got a tier list set up. I'm going to be ranking all of the new cards and all of the returning cards to Spotlight caches this month, like High Evo and Nebula, Annihilus, Loki are in there. I know that some of these cards are probably going to get nerfed next week. We'll talk about those possibilities as well, and I'll be describing what I will be buying and my recommendations for what to buy as a free-to-play player that basically has a full collection in Marvel Snap by utilizing those resources that we get in the game to their maximum potential. And part of that, a huge part of that, is going to come in how you use your Spotlight keys. So I'm going to break some stuff down here at the start of this video. Feel free to skip ahead, but we got to talk about some maths first, and then I'll get on to the ratings. But the important thing here, it's going to be different. Everybody's kind of got a different collection, and that makes doing something like this pretty difficult in terms of encompassing everything. I will try to answer specific questions in the comments or on Twitter or in my Discord. I'll leave a link for that in the video description. If you got a bunch of questions, want to go back and forth, I'm more than happy to break it down and say what I would do for specific collections. But here is the math behind it. So a lot of this is done by Lauren Whatevs. You can find her on Twitter. I'll leave a link to her Twitter in the video description as well. She's also a writer for Marvel Snap Zone, which is where I stole all of the images on the screen that you're gonna see throughout this video. But she's done a lot of the legwork in terms of breaking down the math behind Spotlight keys and basically the income that you get from that and what is the expectation of being able to acquire new cards. So I'm leaning on a lot of her kind of, I want to say, like, principles and things, and then I'm going to come in with my own personal recommendations. But basically, the math behind it all is that you're going to, in a 4-week season, obtain about 4.5 Spotlight keys. And in a 5-week season, it's going to be about 5.5. You get about 1.1, a little bit more than 1 Spotlight key a week, but basically 1 Spotlight key a week. So how does that translate into new cards? Well, each card, if you are looking to open one specific card in a week, like let's take this week on the screen here as an example. We've got Caiera, and let's say that you already have High Evolutionary and Nebula, and you don't care about the variants because you're free to play, even though this High Evo variant is pretty sweet. And I might break some of my rules and open for this High Evo variant this week, but I'm not sure. I'm getting distracted a little bit already, right? And apologies if I get any names wrong. I'm just kind of guessing. They're all made up names anyways, but feel free to attack me in the comments if her name is not Caiera. Moving on. If you just want to open up Caiera this week, it's going to cost you on average 2.5 Spotlight keys, because you might open it in 1, but you might open it in 4 or 2 or 3. If you average all of that together, it's going to be 2.5. The reason I bring that up, some people overlook that. Some people think that, oh, you can just get it in 1 or 2, right? And you only need 2. No, you need 2.5. But all of that is to say that over a season, you can probably hope to get 2 of the new cards. If you try to get more than that, sure, you may get lucky in some seasons. But that doesn't mean that you should go for every new card, especially because I don't think some of these cards are good, and by not going for every single one of these cards, you increase your chances and increase your flexibility in terms of obtaining cards in the future. And I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is here. I was looking through previous seasons, and so last season, I only got Selene. Or, what am I saying? No, I only got Blob. I did not get Selene. That's what I meant to say. Did not get Selene, did not get Havoc, did not get Sebastian Shaw, of course, because that is the paid season pass card. Previous season, the season pass card was Miss Marvel, I believe, right? Don't have that. I also only got, so the season pass cards were Gladiator, Martyr, and Annihilus. So did not get Martyr, did not want to touch it, did not care about it. I did get Annihilus. I thought that card was pretty sweet. Debris was my highest win rate card last season. When you do the season statistics and stuff, they are removing the ability to use Annihilus with Debris, but Annihilus with Debris I thought was pretty good, and I wanted to play that. Now, I did actually technically get Gladiator last season because it came out alongside Loki, which I was picking up for the first time as a free-to-play player. So that's why I said, like, even though I wouldn't have recommended Gladiator, there's going to be specific differences for every single account that's going to make this difficult, this is a difficult video to do. But that's why I'm going to be ranking all 15 cards that are coming out this season on the tier list that we saw. So Caiera, High Evo, Nebula, we're going to put them all on the tier list and kind of talk about the Spotlight Cash bundles as a whole, but also specifically reviewing the new cards. So I don't have too much more to say. I think I'll jump in here with the breakdown of Caiera, High Evo, and Nebula. And this video is coming out a little bit late. I wanted to make sure that these were the Spotlight Caches that we were actually going to be working with this season, and that like nothing was going to get moved around last second. So I didn't pre-record this, and now we've seen Caiera for a little bit. She's pretty good. She's a pretty good card, and I think that she is probably going to be a buy. If we go back to this, I was thinking, like, what if we call this like never skip? This is called always buy. Trying to do, like, there's an S there. This is just buy. This is like consider skipping, and then this one's just a straight up don't. You could say don't buy. I'll just say don't. There we go. This is probably confusing too. Let's just call it S tier. You'll know what that means. So here's the tier list breakdown. I'm gonna put Caiera in the buy category. I think she's buy, and well, I no judgment on. I think she's Hulk's baby mama, right? I think she's Scar's mom. I think that's the lore. Don't really know too much about it. Feel free to fill me in the comments here. I think that she has definitely proven herself as a buy, though, and most of that is just what players have already been able to do with her. She allows you to take priority and still not have to worry about tech cards and still just like develop a bunch of power. You can also have priority going into the final turn and drop her on the final turn, which then goads your opponents into thinking that Shang-Chi might be a possible play, and then she pops up and it actually isn't. So I think that she is definitely like a solid card and deserves a spot right there in the center. I don't think she's going to be anything like fantastic, and we'll see where she falls in, because this month I think is a pretty good month for cards. There's going to be 3 cards that I'm recommending. I guess I'm kind of trying to get ahead of it here a little bit. I think that you might wind up skipping on Caiera, but that she's possibly a buy. Now, moving back to the tier list, we also have High Evo and Nebula for this week. I'm not throwing them all in the same tier. I'm just putting them up on the screen here for the time being. And I think that High Evo is really, really great. One of the best cards in the game, one of the most played cards in the game. If you don't have it, it's just a really cool card because it opens up a whole new deck by itself. So the reason that I think High Evo deserves an S slot, even though it might not always be the best card in the game, if you are a new player, and let's say, like, you're kind of like debating, is it worth, like, oh, I see, I'm going to say good things about Grandmaster coming up. I'm going to say good things about Beta Ray Bill, Loki, Galactus. There's some other really powerful cards this month. I think that High Evo is one that you don't want to skip, especially as a new player, just because the one single card opens up an entire deck and gives you 7 more playable cards in your collection that kind of makes it irreplaceable. I do think that Nebula is probably at a good place in the buy category. She's a previous season pass card, I believe, and she's still pretty good. I don't believe that she's had any nerfs since releasing. And if anything, this month is a buff with Caiera now added to the game because Caiera can protect Nebula. And that makes, they're going to go in some decks side to side. And honestly, those decks can even be high evolutionary decks as well. So I think this is, I wasn't sure how to like represent this visually on the screen, but if I was just ranking the spotlight caches as a whole, like if I was only putting 5 things on this list and it was week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 1 would definitely be, if not the best week, the second best week. Probably the best week though. It's really, really good, and having access to all of these, the fact that they all kind of go in a deck together as well, I think is just really fun and really powerful. Nebula is quite good, and that was the other thing I was going to say. I am going to try to order the cards within the tier as much as I can, and I might shift some tiers as we get through the video just to keep myself honest, and it's gonna, feel free to skip to the end if you just want everything, right? That's kind of how tier lists work, but yeah, it's I reserve the right to still change some of these orders as I figure out like where everything should fall in relation to everything else. Next up, we've got Hercules. So Hercules, now I'm going to start reading some of these cards as well, at least the new ones, because I'm not super familiar with all the new cards, and you might not be either. So Hercules is a 4/6. It says the first time another card moves here, each turn, move it to another location. Now, 2 things to note. Well, maybe one thing to note. First time a card moves here each turn. That could be one of your cards or one of your opponent's cards. So that's kind of interesting. 4/6, whatever. Let's move to this slide. I'm putting Hercules between here and here. And honestly, I think it's gonna go here. I think that there's just too many other good cards coming out this month that Hercules is probably not where you want to be. Now, I will say Howard the Duck, that's a definite don't. Worst card in the game, D for Duck. This is Duck tier. All of these cards, yeah, these are I'm trying to come up with something that's like, duck rhymes with luck. You get where I'm coming from there. But in Hercules specifically, and maybe I could start throwing these cards up. Where are we here? I don't want to mess up with my slides too much, but nope, that's Caiera. What about, yeah, it's got to be this one. Perfect, Hercules. So just to have it on the screen while I'm talking about it, this is a card, so there's a very huge difference between Hercules and Werewolf by Night. which is something that rewards you for doing something that you already want to do. But Hercules is neither a reward nor is it a... So it requires setup to do to use Hercules. But Hercules itself is also just set up for a future thing. So it's like kind of cool with Craven, right? It's kind of cool with Vulture or something, because you move something in, it moves out, and you're getting additional triggers on either of those move effects. The problem is, if you're like already moving things, then maybe you're doing okay as a move deck. Hercules is like kind of like a middleman. It's kind of win more-ish. I'm sure there's going to be people that try it out and have success with it, and that's where a tier list here gets kind of awkward, and where I think Second Dinner may choose to redesign this system in the future. Because I look at this month, 5 cards in the new month, plus Scar, but we won't count that one. 5 cards in the new month, 3 are winners, 2 are stinkers. Those 2 stinkers I'm just like never touching, ever. Same thing with Martyr and Gladiator in a previous month, or Selene and Havoc. I just don't touch the bad cards, which is kind of awkward, and then gets more awkward when they decide to buff the cards when they're no longer in the spotlight caches. That's kind of not great. But the point is, this is a more like, I want to say, I don't want to say parasitic, but it's a specific card. Hercules belongs in a specific deck, whereas Caiera can go in so many different decks. Werewolf by Night, even Nebula, can go in so many different types of decks. Howard the Duck can't go in any deck, so in that regard, Hercules is certainly better than Howard the Duck, which is going to be the worst card in this tier. I think Howard the Duck is worse than even Angel or Kang. I mean, I don't know. I've never played it, but I don't really have any reason to play it. The other card coming out this week is Werewolf by Night, and I think that Hercules and Howard the Duck being so bad means that you should probably just skip Werewolf by Night. Now, Werewolf by Night was good enough that it had to get nerfed, but it was nerfed not by removing some power from it, it was nerfed by making it cost more, which is a lot more expensive, especially because this is a card that, like Bishop or Angela, you want to play earlier on in the game, and now that it costs 4, I've seen some people playing it with Zabu, and some of those people are still playing it alongside Loki now with Zabu, and it can certainly work. But I don't think that Werewolf is like a must pick up, and even right now, I would say that High Evo, Caiera, and Nebula are all seeing more play than Werewolf across the board. So I do think that you should skip Werewolf, especially because it's just not worth wasting keys to find Hercules or Howard, which you'll just like randomly get as that 4th bonus card some point in the future. Save those for down the line. But let's move on to our 3rd week here, which is Miek plus Annihilus plus Phoenix Force. After each turn, if you discarded any cards, gain +1 power for each and move. Now, unlike Hercules, this is a payoff card. This is do something, get a reward for it, directly in the form of more stats on Michael here. Now, is it good? I don't think so. I don't think it's enough stats, and I don't think that the movement is really relevant either. It's a 1-cost card, so you get to protect it with Caiera, but it also means it's just more vulnerable than it really needs to be. And so you compare it to Morbius, right? Which is 2-cost and getting +2 for each card that you discard. It doesn't move, and it has ongoing, which means that it can be disabled in a few different other ways. Though Miek can still be disabled as well by like Shadow King, right? But still, +1 for each card that you discard, and you also have no flexibility in terms of when you can play Miek, means that it's just much, much worse than a card that already isn't seeing that much play, right? So let's think about where we want to put Miek, and I will say that it is definitely a don't duck. However, there's a little caveat here. There's a little bit of an asterisk, and that is the fact that Miek is a Series 4 card. So if you want to pick up a Series 4 card and you have a bunch of tokens, collector's tokens to spend, that's what they're called, right? Collector's tokens, there's so many different resources in the game, even I get a little bit confused, but the recommendation from Lauren is to use collector's tokens to buy the Series 4 card that in theory we get one of each month. I still personally say skip it, and the reason that I say skip it, and why I'm going to move it right here even, is these cards are all cards that I'd be like happy enough to pick up in that 4th slot in my spotlight caches, but that I don't even really want to waste tokens on. I personally like to use tokens still on Series 5 cards, and that's mostly because Series 4 cards have largely been stinkers still, and I don't feel are even worth the 3K tokens. Now, that 3K tokens breakdown for full transparency or to get you more into that mindset are actually for people buying the Spotlight season pass, is what I mean to say, because you will get a little bit more additional tokens if you are a season pass buyer each month. Now, that being said, I think that everything that I'm talking about in this video equally applies to season pass buyers. The season pass doesn't get you that much more. It gets you, of course, the signature card each month, and it gets you about 1,000 tokens, and those 1,000 tokens add up over the course of several seasons. But it's not like, okay, you're buying the season pass, now you can just purchase every card every season with reckless abandon. You might still need to know how the #1 free-to-play player in Marvel Snap breaks everything down, and that's a title I gave myself, by the way, if that wasn't clear. A for Annihilus, maybe not always. Maybe he's a little bit worse now. They're also going to be nerfing Annihilus by no longer allowing you to move over the rocks from debris, or any rocks for that matter. And I do unfortunately think that does make Annihilus a decent amount worse. I don't think that you needed debris to play Annihilus. I do still think Annihilus is going to be powerful, but you could definitely get some free wins with Annihilus and debris. Looking at just what people are playing this week, I do think that Nebula could get the edge over Annihilus, and Caiera too, but both of these cards are, well, Caiera is like the new hotness and Nebula goes along with Caiera. I do think, I should also say, any nerfs coming to the game, I don't actually know about. I am part of the Marvel Snap content creator program, but we don't have information that much in the future, and some things in the leaked patch notes might change in the future. That said, I would expect them to make that change to Annihilus, potentially with an additional power because of that change. Either way, I still think that the card is going to be pretty good, and probably a little bit better than Nebula. So I'm comfortable putting it here. We're splitting hairs here in the buy tier. I could see wanting to open up here if you don't have Annihilus, don't have Phoenix Force, don't have Miek. What did we decide on for this card's name? If you don't have any of the cards for this week, I could see, let's see, did I, oops, wrong thing there. Is this on next week yet? Yeah, if you don't have any of these 3 cards, I could see getting some of them, but I don't think that it's super necessary, especially because Annihilus is going to get nerfed and is coming alongside two kind of stinkers. I won't say that Phoenix Force is a total stinker. It's a totally fine card. It's a season pass card, but just to let you know, I don't own Phoenix Force. It's been in Spotlight caches several times. I've skipped it several times. It does allow itself to get put in some cool decks, and maybe I'm even discounting the synergy here between Phoenix Force and Hercules, a card that can move every turn, and Hercules allowing you to move that card again. That's pretty cool. But ultimately, I don't think that like these other two cards are like super great, but I could still see wanting to pick up Annihilus just for itself. I've put out a lot of Annihilus content on the channel if you're looking to check that out and looking for some sweet Annihilus gameplay. Moving on to the next week though. This next week though, this one right here is a scoopity whoop. So I would definitely be scooping up all three of these cards. I think, so I said earlier that Caiera's week could be the top week. This is the other week in contention for it. So I'll break down Grandmaster again in a second by putting it on the screen. But to get this out of the way, Loki, I mean, it's here. And we've seen the nerfs that are coming to Loki. They're going to need to nerf this card again. It's really good, one of the best cards in the game. It seems like Second Dinner has a vested interest in keeping this one of the best cards in the game. There's an awkward thing with Marvel Snap in that they want to introduce these core MCU characters early on in the game because they're recognizable cards. And then the game gives you all of these Captain America in the tutorial. Iron Man, you get pretty early on. Hulk is a vanilla card. Cyclops, all of these iconic cards that they give you super early on in the tutorial of the game. And that means that all of these other cards that are coming out, okay, yeah, I know Nebula, that's Amy Pond, right? But all of these other things I've never heard of before. I mean, I've heard of Werewolves before. I've heard of Hercules before. I guess I have heard of Phoenix Force. This is like almost like a meme. I had no clue this was a Marvel movie, but it came out, I think, before I was born. I don't know. It was like an 80s movie or something. Point is, Loki's hot. He's cool. He's got a show. It's a cool show. I like Loki. I actually watched the show. And yeah, they do have an interest in keeping some big MCU characters and just some cool, noteworthy Marvel characters that everybody knows as relevant game pieces. So I think Loki's still going to be good. I don't think they want to just totally kill Loki. And I mean, you've seen the MCU has killed Loki 3, 4, 10 times. And their response to that is, okay, if you kill Loki, there's I mean, he's Kang at this point. There's 20 more Lokis out there. So yeah, Loki's not going anywhere. I think it is probably just like bang for your buck, best card in the game. And it's coming alongside two really cool cards. So I think that Hitmonkey probably goes within the buy category right here, but I'm going to take Grandmaster and I'm going to put them solidly as my first always card, because I think that if you only want to get one new card this season, it should be Grandmaster, assuming that you have all the other returning cards. I'm just talking about the cards releasing this season. This thing seems really cool. So 2 cost, 0 power, on reveal, move one of your other on reveal cards here to the middle location. Its ability happens again. This is Absorbing Man for half the cost. That's it. Absorbing Man, kind of niche, pretty cool, but at half the cost, incredible. So I think that is really, really fantastic. I think this thing is going to see play in a bunch of existing decks, but I gotta tell you, it's also gonna make new archetypes as well. It's more or less Odin. It can, I mean, yeah, there's so much going on with it. It is basically, so I'll leak a little bit here, just in like one deck, just to kind of wet your whistle here. Electro, Black Panther, Arnim Zola, Odin. That's like already a pretty cool deck that does a decent job at putting 40 power into 2 different locations. This is just like more consistency for any of your game pieces. Can't replace Electro, but it can re-trigger your Panther or re-trigger your Arnim Zola, which is just crazy. So yeah, this thing is going to be really good. It just means that you can have like any combination of Arnim Zola, Grandmaster, and Odin. I guess you do need Arnim Zola, but you can use Grandmaster as a substitute Odin, which is pretty great. And still, even in that example where you're playing it alongside Electro, it's still good. Even if you're paying 7 mana for this effect, I think it's still worth putting in your deck. And that's just like one example. It can do Loki stuff. If you ever copy this off of Loki, it can activate Loki again. I don't know exactly how this card will work in terms of like mechanically, can you play it in the middle location? I don't believe so. So there are some stipulations there, some things to build around. But ultimately, it is really good. I think that Hitmonkey is probably in the buy tier, but I do think it's potentially above. Now, you know what? It's probably below Caiera. It's tough because everybody's playing Caiera this week, and it's tough to know if that's real or if it's because she's new. I do think it might be real. It seems like just because Shang-Chi is the most popular card in the game at like 30 to 40% play rate, having a card that's sole purpose is basically to counter their counter and then facilitate you doing the biggest thing. I think Caiera is probably the real deal. So we'll put her there, and then we are going to move along here into, sorry, I'm just got all of these slides queued up, and this is the last one. This is the last series of Spotlight Caches for the season, coming to you with Beta Ray Bill. So Beta Ray Bill is a 4/5 that says on reveal, shuffle Stormbreaker into your deck. I don't have the image here for Stormbreaker, but it's basically a Mjolnir. And it is, I just watched the newest Thor movie, which features Stormbreaker in it. And I'm not super up on like all my Marvel lore, as I've said, so I'm not sure how long Thor's had Stormbreaker. They give you some of the, like they go back and tell you some of the details, but I never like remember, like Christian Bale showed up in the first scene. This isn't a spoiler. Christian Bale's crawling around on the ground in the opening scene of Thor: Love and Thunder. And so I paused the movie and I was like, okay, is this a character I'm supposed to already know about? Or like, did something happen to this thing in a previous movie? Or is this somebody that I'm meeting for the first time? So yeah, I'm never like super sure on all of that. But Stormbringer is very much like Mjolnir that exists in Marvel Snap as well. That's what I was getting to. Got a little bit distracted. It's a 0/0. It says on reveal, double Beta Ray Bill's power. So you're looking at a pretty similar output to Thor and a pretty similar effect to Thor in the game. A 4/5 that then becomes a 4/10. Thor being a 3/4 that becomes a 3/10, but Thor did release as a 4-cost card. Wasn't as good, but was still reasonable. And the other thing that I want to bring up here with this, as I bring this up in my OBS, is that you can play both Thor and Beta Ray Bill, which I think is going to be pretty cool. I think that's going to be good with Hitmonkey. And so for that reason, I think that Beta Ray Bill is also a buy. It might be worse than Annihilus. It might be even worse than Nebula. And honestly, all of those things. I mean, I just gotta be honest here and fill out the thing. It's gonna be a consider skipping, because I do think that I don't want to put it and Caiera in the same tier, right? Because then I'm kind of like endorsing both. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, two of them are down in the duck tier. It's definitely better than Hercules and Miek, I think. And I'm excited to try it out in Jane Monkey. That was a deck that I think a lot of people enjoyed in the past, and I know that some people thought it was cool when I was showcasing it off here on the channel previously. I think that, I don't know, do I have anything else to say about Beta Ray Bill? I think it's cool. So there's also some other synergies that you can play with Beta Ray Bill that separate it from Thor, and that is if you find any way to give Beta Ray Bill permanent power, aka not Xandar, not Nidavellir, but let's say yes to either like Wakandan Embassy or I can't think of the other location that gives some temporary power, like 1 power at the end of each turn off the top of my head. But the other way that you can play it is like with Forge and with Okoye and the other Wakandan card. You then get to double whatever bonuses that you've given to Beta Ray Bill, so those bonuses can stretch you a little bit far. Now, it's not gonna, like I said, double anything that would be like a static effect that you could play. Something like Blue Marvel isn't gonna work, even though that's something that you might otherwise want to play in the deck. But it is kind of cool that it says the word double, and it does also mean that if you are able to loop Stormbringer by playing it into Lockjaw and then finding it again with Jane, playing it again on the final turn, then you've made a 420, which is pretty cool. So there's definitely some like high roll potential for Beta Ray Bill because just the word double is on Stormbringer. I think though, even just as a 410, that allows you to get another 0 and increase the power of your hit monkey and just increase like the relevancy of your Jane Foster, which was previously played alongside Thor and then like Wasp with high Evo generally was the idea. I think that just having another 0 that you can put into your deck will overall make the deck more consistent, and it makes me want to put Beta Ray Bill here. I personally am probably going to buy Beta Ray Bill. I did also buy Caiera, and I'm going to buy Grandmaster, but part of the reason that I can do that, like I said, I didn't buy Selene, I didn't buy Havoc, so I can buy an extra card this month, and I think that that is important to note. So in order to say, like, the reason that I'm putting Beta Ray Bill at the consider skipping tier and what that really means to me is if you have the resources, go for it. It's a cool card. It's probably going to be playable for you and be fun. However, there might be 3 cards that you want next month. I haven't done the full breakdown yet. I don't want to get too far ahead on the content with like data mines and stuff that could definitely change. We don't know what cards are going to change in patches and OTAs and stuff, but I think that it is worth saying that like these cards are definitely skipped. Duck these cards. This card, you could get it if you've skipped previously. If you haven't skipped previously, let's say you've got like under 10 spotlight caches right now, maybe save some for February and for March, because one of these months they're gonna throw a month at you where you want every single new card, and you want to be prepared for that in the best way that you can, and that's going to include skipping some cards that you may want a little bit right now. Some cards that you probably don't want right now are Elsa. It's basically been more or less unplayable since the nerf. They kind of got to do something to her. I'm gonna say she's still maybe above Phoenix Force, but also like she's prime candidate for like they nerfed her too hard. She was busted before and she was a season pass card, but yeah, she's just not good. And then Galactus, This is an awkward one because Galactus is a card close to my heart. I probably have more Galactus videos than any other, despite not playing Galactus in like, I don't know, months at this point, but I do still consider myself a Galactus enjoyer. There's people currently having success with Galactus. I think Interrobang is currently enjoying Galactus plus Miss Marvel, but pretty soon you won't be able to do that either, which means that Galactus has probably got to move down into the duck tier, but I'm going to move him back up because he's sweet, and that's part of the reason that high Evo justifies his positioning. You know what, then I'm going to move it back down. What was it with? Beta Ray Bill? Nah. Okay, I'm going to move it back up. Here's what I want to say about Galactus, though, and to a lesser extent, potentially high Evo and Loki, as well as Thanos, which we will be seeing in a Spotlight Cache next month. These cards, and like Null, they love to put those 4 or 5 cards in Spotlight Caches, and there's going to be other opportunities to get Galactus in the future. So I'd really base your decision on whether or not you want Beta Ray Bill. I do know that Galactus is also coming with a pretty cool comic cover variant. So is Werewolf, I believe. I didn't talk about too much about variants here. Where's the Werewolf one? Oh no, this is a sweet it's a sweet Loki, I think. Vote Loki. That's pretty cool. And the Chibi Hit Monkey. This is Werewolf. I don't know. You might accidentally get a silly little Howard the Duck variant, so just ignore it. But if you want the comic cover Bronze Age variant for Galactus, you know, I'm not going to fault you there. Like I said, I think I'm personally I personally opened for Caiera, and it took me 3 Spotlight Caches to get her. So if I open up one more, I'll get the high Evo comic cover variant, the What If variant there, and that's probably worth it to me. But I don't know. I've never in Marvel Snap used resources to get a cosmetic. I think I arguably did one time. There was the I believe the name is Ryan Gonzalez, Squirrel Girl. It was called Too Many Tokens. So I did purchase that, but it also came with too many tokens to pass it up. I think I am going to pass this video up now, though. I think I've said enough. Like I said, I am willing to say more. If there's any specific questions that you may have, feel free to leave those down below in the comments or at me on Twitter, or you can find a link for my Discord in the video description. But for this video, I think that's going to be it. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm No Lux Given. Peace.